Thank you for inviting me. And it's lovely to meet you all, even though it's only virtually. I think Natalie has told you in the run up to this what I do, but just a quick recap. I'm a creative coach. I work specifically with creative people because I love creative people. I couldn't exist without creativity in my life. And I want to help them thrive and feel fulfilled in their creative practices. I don't tell people how to do things because you know how to do things better than I do. But it's about helping you to work out the things that get in your way. And I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. Don't worry, you're not going to have to listen to me for 40 minutes. So I'll talk for about 20 minutes. I'm going to be talking about 3 coaching exercises which I give to clients, which we won't have time to do in the session, but I'm going to send them to Natalie so she can send them out afterwards, so you don't have to write lots of notes. And the talk is really based around things that clients talk to me about when they come. What their idea of success is, confidence is always a big one, and about working with the fears that come up when you're kind of putting yourself and your work out there. So I work with clients who come to me for many reasons, such as wanting clarity on where they want to go, how to get motivation, and also those things when they know what they want to do, but something's getting in the way and they're not quite sure what it is. And something that comes up a lot is they come with expectations of what a proper artist should be or should have. In terms of this talk, I'm going to use the word artist to cover everything that you do. So whether you're a ceramicist, a jeweler, working with textiles, so covering all creativity. Some of these ideas are that art has to be your only source of income. You have to have a gallery, you have to have had a solo show, an arts education, you have to have won a prize, all these kinds of things. And from this, they create a picture that of what success as an artist should look like. But often these expectations are unrealistic. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way, they're not good enough. It's because they're not things that the people really want to do. It's coming out of oughts and shoulds. And so with the best will in the world, they're not going to be motivated. And then they start blaming themselves for being lazy or procrastinating. Or, and I think this can sometimes be even worse, they're really, really busy and they're working all hours, but they're doing the wrong things for them. And this activity doesn't pay off. And again, this can feed into a kind of a sense of failure, especially when we have so much around us, like social media telling us how wonderfully everyone else is doing, a lack of confidence. I've even seen it stifling people's creativity. So they kind of think, well, what's the point? No one's going to like my work. It won't sell, so I won't even bother putting it out there. But then when I invite people to step back and think about what they really want to do, it can open up so much. And I should say here that, if you really want a gallery, if you really want a solo show, if you really want, the V&A to buy a piece of your work, or license your designs to sell through John Lewis, then absolutely go for it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. It's just whether it's right for you. And it's about being aware that there are as many different ways in which you can be successful and fulfilled as an artist as there are artists. So what can you do to find out if these expectations are right for you? And this is the first exercise that you'll get in the PDF, which is to write down all the things that you think and believe that you need to be a proper artist. So just have a real brainstorm of all these things you've been told. And then you go through each one line by line. And there's a set of questions that you can go through. So I'll give you an example that happened with a client of mine who she felt that to be a proper artist, she had to be 5 days a week in her studio, like a proper job, 9 till 5. And she'd been doing that for about 2 months, and it really wasn't working for her. She was very unhappy. So the first question I asked her was, well, being in your studio 5 days a week, what does it give you? And she said, well, it gives her time to experiment. It gives her time to produce work. And that, she felt, was about it. I said, okay, so what's the downside? And for her, she was really lonely. There wasn't any outside stimulation, mainly because she was in a studio complex, but most other people weren't in their studio all the time. Because she was in her studio, she felt she had to be doing all the time. You know, she always had to be doing the practical stuff and not having those wonderful moments where you just let your mind wander, and or even just allowing yourself to go out for a walk, or you know, go into a gallery and see somebody else's work. So it felt like, well, she actually used the word at one point, it felt like a bit of a prison rather than somewhere where she could be free and creative. So I then asked, well, where did this belief come from? You know, who said this is what you actually have to do? And it came from when she had been at art college, and she, you know, this whole picture of being an artist was you just work all the time on your art. That's all you do. And it's about being a professional artist. And she just thought, well, you know, actually, it's not something I really want. And this is a big question to ask yourself, is this what I really want? And it's brilliant because it does several things. One thing is it gives you permission to let go of things. And in this case, this client decided that she would go into her studio 5 mornings a week because she knew that her mornings were her most creative time. And she would work and, you know, just create. And then in the afternoons, she might stay in her studio, or she might go for a walk. She might go and, you know, look at visit somebody else's studio and get inspiration that way. But it freed things up for her. And it allowed her to start thinking about what she wanted her creative practice to be like. And all this helps when it comes to motivation. Now, I'm not going to say that when you're motivated to do something, it's just going to be a breeze, because there's still a hard slog. They're still doing the things that you don't like, which might be you know, bookkeeping or doing the social media, all that kind of stuff. There may still be things that will be scary because you want to try and do new things and step out of your comfort zone. But it's easier to keep going when you're doing it out of your values and out of your bigger picture of what you want to do. And this can also help with your confidence, because you're working to your own standards and your own goals, rather than trying to conform to this picture that somebody somewhere in a class once might have said. And we can all be guilty of that. And confidence is a huge thing that comes up a lot with my clients. It comes up a lot with me as well, I'll be honest. I always think confidence isn't a constant. I think there is this idea that, you know, once you're confident all the time. But, you know, we're in different situations all the time. And in some, it's like, oh, yeah, I've done this before. This is no problem. And others, it's like, oh, this is a bit scary. But the problem is that we often tell ourselves that we can't do something, or that we wouldn't be any good before we've even started. And often we can also provide evidence for it. I mean, if I give you a personal story, I've done, I don't know how many workshops and talks I've done. It's well into 3 figures now. And to be honest, I can't remember most of them, because they worked and they, you know, that was it, they were over. But I can remember every single moment of a 2-hour workshop I did 10 years ago, which bombed. It was awful. And the problem is, whenever anyone says to me, like Natalie comes to me and says, would you like to do a talk? The first thought that comes up was, no, I did that one once and it was awful. And the problem is sometimes we don't then go beyond that. And from that, we begin to doubt and question all our abilities and all our worths. So when you feel that happening, what we need to do is create evidence for all the times we got things right, for all the times it worked. And we can do this in the form of a confidence list. And again, this is in the PDF. For example, I could do a list of my 10 best talks or the feedback I got from my talks. And then, or if it's something where you haven't done the thing before, it can be a more general list. So it's 10 things that you have done that you feel proud of and confident about when you think of them. And then when you have those doubts coming up of, oh, yeah, I can't do this, you just go, oh, hang on, I'm just going to have a look at my little list. And the great thing is that this list will be personal to you. And it can be things like learning a language, learning to drive, running a marathon, if you do that, raising a child. Heavens, I haven't raised a child. I have no idea how you do that. I'm incredibly impressed by people who can do that. Selling your first piece of work, working out how to use a kiln. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how big or small these accomplishments might seem to other people. They might look at that list and go, really, you had a problem with that? But it took huge amounts of bravery to do something. All that matters is that the list works for you, so that you can remember that confidence. And it's also great because if you think of something like driving a car, it can remind you of the time when you just looked at the car and went, what do I do with this? To, oh, I'm just popping down the shops. It reminds you that you can learn how to do something. And it's also, and I think this is very important around confidence and working with creatives, is, I mean, listening to you all introduce yourself. A lot of you are painters, a lot of you working in textiles. Even though you're using the same media as other people, and you might even have similar themes, the way you use them and what you produce is absolutely unique to you. It's your way of expressing your creativity and your view of the world. And this is one of the things I adore so much about creativity, is when I look at someone's work, it makes me see the world in a different way. Even if it's something as simple as, I did not know you could do that with silk. I didn't know you could get that effect with oils. It makes you look again. And that's what you're creating. And it's about really valuing your work and your uniqueness and believing in that. And it's not about being boastful. It's not about, this sometimes worries a lot of people. It's not about, oh yeah, I'm the best ceramicist or the best painter. It's just going, this is my work. This is how I produce work. This is my voice. I'm often amazed, for instance, when I go to something like an art fair or a craft fair, and I see a jeweler who isn't wearing their own work, isn't wearing an own piece of jewelry. Because I think, well, if you're not going to wear it, if you don't value it enough to wear it, why should I? And I always love it when I go to an open studios and there's all the lovely work on the walls, and then an artist will say, oh, I don't want to sell that bit because I want to keep that because I like it. I always think that's wonderful that, you value your work enough that you're not just wanting to sell it. But the thing is, you want people to see your work. You want people to engage with it and hopefully to buy it. But sometimes people can be so frightened about putting their work out there because these doubts come in of people won't like it, people won't buy it. And I'm going to be very blunt here. Not everyone will like the work you produce. Because if you think about it, do you like every painting that you see? Do you like every photograph that you see? Do you like every ceramic that you see? We all have very different tastes. And so it's being, and I know it's dreadful that when you put your own work out there, it's horrible when someone says, either they don't like it or they ignore it, because it's your baby. I understand it's so personal, but it's about stepping back and going, oh, that's fine. there will be someone who likes it. And think about the people whose work you like, you really love it. So it's about finding those people that really love your work. Now, as I'm speaking, I'm sure that there's all kinds of fears that might be jumping into your mind about putting yourself out there and this kind of thing. I'd be more surprised if there weren't, really. We all have fears. The thing is, most people don't tell others about them. And we certainly don't post about it on social media where everyone has the perfect lives. And also, as creatives, you naturally have curious and inquiring minds. You're naturally drawn to trying new things and learning and developing. So you're always going to be coming out of your comfort zones. And sometimes these fears, like, you know, my fear of doing a talk because, oh, it might be awful again, they might just stop you dead and you never do that thing and you can end up regretting it. Now, I'm not one of those coaches that says you have to get up and do everything that frightens you. I can assure you that you will never, ever see me picking up a spider with my bare hands. You know, you don't have to be doing scary things just to prove you can do scary things. It's just that when you feel this fear come up of what happens if I do this thing, instead of just going, oh, I'm just going to run away and not think about it, ask yourself, quite a scary question, but it's, what's the worst that could happen, really? As an example, I had a client who wanted to apply to an art fair, but she had two reasons why she didn't want to do it. One was they might not accept her. And I said, well, are you going to be in the art fair now? No. So if you apply for the art fair and you're not in it, will you be in the art fair? No. So you won't have lost anything. But the other thing she was frightened of was if they said yes. Because she said, oh, if they asked me yes, I don't know what to do. There's so much to think about. I don't know how to display my work. I'm frightened it won't look good. I'm frightened of using social media. And you know, I'm frightened no one will come and see my work or come and talk to me. And so those fears were just stopping her dead. And so I did the exercise that's, again, in the PDF, of, okay, what are these things that are frightening you? And what could you do to stop them from happening? I mean, in her case, she could ask people who'd done it before, you know, ask for help, ask if somebody could give her a quick, you know, 5-minute basics on Instagram, how you use that. Have a conversation with the organizer. You know, there's things that you can do to just stop that knee-jerk reaction. With me and my talk, you know, what the questions that I go through are, you know, what are you frightened of? I'm frightened of standing up in front of a room and talking to people because, well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen is I could forget what I'm going to say. I could look like an idiot. Happened before, it'll happen again. Why would that be a problem? Because I would be letting down the people I'm talking to. I would look unprofessional. So what would I need to avoid that? Well, I can make notes about what I'm going to talk to. I have no shame in admitting it on my screen underneath my camera. I have notes to remind me what I'm talking about next. I could, you know, practice what I was going to say roughly to time. And then I think, and what else could happen? And you go through all these fears. And this is not about getting rid of the fears completely, but it's about thinking, oh, well, if that happened, I could do that. It's like doing a risk assessment. And something that can happen is you can go through these things. And at the end of it, you can go, well, okay, I've kind of worked out I can handle those fears, but actually I don't want to do it. Not really, because perhaps it doesn't fit into the bigger picture that you created for yourself of what you want to achieve. But the thing is, at least you would have thought about it, rather than what so many of us do, and I'm as guilty as the next person, of self-sabotaging and just throwing potentially a good opportunity away. And the question I have at the bottom of the PDF, the last question, is always, If I do what I fear, what could I achieve? Which is always quite an interesting one, because then you start thinking, oh, well, if I do this, I could get, you know, some people signing up to my newsletter. I could sell a piece of work. I could meet a new collector. So it's not about getting rid of your fears, because I think a little bit of fear can be good for you, but it's about getting beyond them. And again, these are times when you're feeling a bit nervous, but you still want to get things done. You can go back and look at your confidence list. And you can still get nervous. I'm going to be, again, completely honest. Before I came on the line with Natalie, I was walking around the flat going, why are they asking me to do this? Because I always get incredibly nervous before doing a talk. Absolutely. But I think it's good, because it's fear and excitement are kind of two sides of the same coin. And it's about being able to flip that over and use the adrenaline, as you like, as energy. And in fact, during the recent Summer Olympics, I heard a great quote from Tom Daley, the diver, who was being asked about fear. And he said, fear is excitement without the breathing. Because when you think of it, when you feel a bit fearful, you kind of start breathing from up here. So when you're feeling that fear, it's just remember to take a few deep breaths and get breathing from the stomach and just calm yourself down. And I think that's about the key things I wanted to say. I've rattled through things a bit, but then I want to leave space for you to ask questions. But I think the key takeaways from this I'd like you to think about are: throw away all the oughts and the shoulds if they don't work from you. Know what success is for you, whether that's working full-time as an artist, whether that's having another occupation that you like and running the art alongside. Whatever it is, create your practice the way you want it to be. Grow your confidence by really valuing and believing in your work and your voice, and also reminding yourself of what you've done before. We never start anything from ground zero. We've got all this experience behind us. And remember that your voice, your creative voice, is unique and special, and I think very needed. And don't let fear stop you. You know, I'm not saying don't be frightened, but don't let it stop you, because you could achieve, I think, more than you can imagine if you want to. And you will get the exercises, the little PDF that I'll send to Natalie to send out to all of you, so that you can, if you want to, work through those exercises and see what comes up for you. So that's basically the bones of my talk. I'm giving you lots of things to think about, and I am open to questions and comments and people to disagree. Thank you. I always say that coach is, well, my way of coaching is a thinking partner, a collaborator. It's someone who's on your side, but who also has an objective view. Because I know I'm very bad for doing this, is sometimes we go to someone who we know will collude with us. You know, we'll go and talk to a friend who we say, we want your honest opinion, but we know that they're actually going to say, oh yeah, I think that sounds great, you know. And sometimes we don't need that. And I always think, I'm very happy that you're finding it a good experience, Natalie. And I can be quite tough, but I'm not a tough person. I'm not going to say, well, you didn't do what you said you were going to, because we have that going on up here in our heads anyway. We don't need that again. What we need is someone who is going to be encouraging, but who also might say, and what else is happening? You know, so it's
exactly.
Yeah. I'm always, I should also say, I'm a great one for fun. So if it makes it easier, you can actually draw your answers. You know, you're not tied to text, which makes it a bit more fun and takes it out of the body a bit more. But also, I mean, yes, partnering up with someone else is a very useful thing to do. You can also, and this sounds possibly a little bit daft, but I have done it with clients before, where they have felt quite confronted by something and they don't want to think about it. And when I did face-to-face in real life coaching as opposed to Zoom, I would get them to look at an empty chair and put somebody in that chair and say to them, what's your fear? So it's almost imagining, or you can imagine, just it's a friend of yours that you know, and kind of project that fear onto them. Because for one thing, we're usually so much better at solving other people's problems than our own. But it's that thing of you're putting the fear over there and you're helping that person. So if you are in a situation where you are in your studio on your own and you want to get something out of your head, that's another way to do it if you can't actually partner up. And also just really be compassionate with yourself and just go, hey, this is fine. It's okay to have the fear. That's the important thing to say. It's okay. Fear is important because it's there to protect us. But it's not a bad thing. It's just something to get over. But yes, I mean, pairing up is a great idea. The exercises are in the book. And what I would suggest is that you try them through once. And, don't necessarily just sit down and do them randomly, but try them out. But I made them up. They are not the law. So if you start doing them and you think, I can see what she's trying to do here, but there's another way I want to do it for myself, then please do, your creative people, make it work for you and don't feel you have to be in the straitjacket. Use the exercises as a guide, as a starting point.